This is Barbara the Barbarian, Part 2, Thought Bubble of Ewoks. Barbara gets trip attacked. The forest was as awe-inspiring as it was dangerous and confusing. Barbara walked a short time with the three Amazon women until they approached a rocky alcove that seemed as if someone stacked these rocks to fashion a wall double their height. The trees were bigger, and though the darkness obscured everything she saw, she knew she saw people moving in the treetops. There were other women with pole weapons and tiger-striped red marks guarding the entryway. The women she traveled with spoke, while the new sentries looked her up and down as if testing her. Barbara shook her head at the hostility. It felt like a 70s Women in Cages movie. Was Pam Grier gonna pop out and beat her up in the showers? They entered, and most of the brush was cleared out, but the trees were untouched. There were interconnected bridges and ropes that one may use to access the treetops, even a few structures built up top.
Ewok village,
Barbara said gleefully with a chuckle, musing at the irony of the situation. One of her traveling companions turned around and said in a broken accent,
Ewok?
As if in the form of a question. Barbara shook her hands as if to say it was nothing.
Little walking bears in Star Wars?
She added, as if it were nothing to it. The three looked at Barbara for a long moment, then kept walking, as if they didn't feel like getting to the bottom of this mystery this night. Torches were lit all around, and there was little activity in the encampment. They stopped in the middle of the huge camp and yelled up to the top of the tree, which had a huge structure built into it. Someone threw a rope down that was knotted as if for some measure of footholds. One of the three women looked to Barbara and said something. She took it to mean climb up or something of that nature, but she really couldn't be sure. Two went up the rope expertly with their wooden pole arms hanging from a strap. The third woman mean-mugged Barbara, still pissed that she had took her weapon and waited for her to go up the rope first.
I haven't done this shit since high school,
Barbara said, looking at the rope skeptically. The two Amazons called down to the bottom and spoke to the third one on the ground. She spoke back and started laughing. Barbara got the distinct impression it was about her.
Fuck you too, bitch,
said Barbara, who grabbed the thick rope and made her way up.
Just don't be looking at my ass,
she said to the Amazon on the bottom. When she reached the top, there was an open trapdoor that she easily stepped off of onto a platform. There was a great hall built in between four huge trees. Barbara could have said something about it, but she was getting the idea that these women didn't get what she was saying in the slightest anyways. She was taken into a fairly big room which had torches in it, lining the walls. There, she saw a bigger, tougher woman of darker skin than the others she traveled with. There was an armory's worth of weapons on the wall behind her, and she sat in a wooden throne, with one leg draped over the armrest. This must have been the queen bitch of the treehouse. She was seated alone with only two women at the door when she came in. The dark-skinned woman at the throne spoke decisively and with a strong voice. The other three seemed to be subordinate because of how they reacted to her. The leader hopped out of her chair vigorously and strode across the wooden floor with the speed and grace of a tiger. She really appeared as if she were chewing them out, but Barbara couldn't be for certain. The graceful queen bitch pointed to the woman she disarmed and chuckled, then pointed to Barbara. She gestured to herself and said,
Alo,
then pointed to her. Barbara figured that they must have been doing some sort of introductions. So she pointed to herself and said,
Barbara?
The dark-skinned leader's eyes squinted. Barbarian, she said with suspicion. Barbara threw up her hands.
Barbara,
she said, wondering why in the fuck did she come up with that, and wondering why that was the word that they both seemed to know.
Barbarian,
said the queen, who snapped her fingers to one of the women who Barbara arrived with. The woman, who Barbara thought might be named Alo, caught a wooden pole arm thrown to her. Alo immediately did a few experimental thrusts Barbara's direction. The former Fitness America raised the weapon she had taken.
Come on, I know a little of this shit, but we really don't have to do this Star Trek dueling shit, do we?
Said Barbara. Whether Alo had no sense of her meaning or didn't care was uncertain. But that did prompt her to jab with her pole arm harder. Barbara jumped back and readied her weapon. She summoned every piece of fighting knowledge she had, which wasn't much. Barbara's training was more based on athletics and form than practical applications. Alo kept up with her assault and, with a brilliant flourish, jabbed Barbara in her gut.
Motherfucker!
Barbara yelled when the pain hit. She immediately dropped her pole arm and rolled with the gut shot, throwing a spinning roundhouse connecting to the side of Alo's head. The queen bitch rolled backwards defensively and shook off the blow, but not before giving Barbara a little smile. Barbara was just as shocked as she was to have actually connected, but she picked up the polearm when Alo retreated. The Amazon queen hit Barbara's hand and her polearm several times until she could no longer hold on to her weapon. Before Barbara could throw a punch, Alo tripped her and briskly put the spear to the tip of her throat.
Matei,
Barbara said, remembering some shit she had heard in a Claude Van Damme movie. The Amazon queen tossed her polearm back to the woman who it belonged to, then, in one epic yank, pulled Barbara to her feet.
Barbarian,
said Alo with a nod.
Okay,
said Barbara, not wanting to give the queen any reason to finish what she started. Look for part 3. Like and subscribe.